Welcome back to Christian Questions on News Talk 102.3 FM WXLM. Our subject this morning, what does love accomplish? To be a part of our program, call 860-442-6102. That's 442-6102.
And Jonathan, as we develop this subject, it's important, and will probably sound like a broken record for a while, but it's important to realize that when we talk about love, we want to talk about love in a much larger sense than it normally is given credit for existing in. We want to broaden it because, by definition, it ought to be broader than we think. And we talked about the two words primarily in the New Testament that are used for love, and they're very different. One is a brotherly or fraternal affection, a bonding, and you think about one of the examples I always think about when I think of brotherly love and that fraternal affection and bonding is two soldiers in a fight together. And they've got a bond of loyalty to one another and protection of one another, and that's an important, valuable part of living. And we need to create those kind of bonds in our lives. And in the Bible, we're instructed to do a lot of that. Let brotherly love continue. That's what it's talking about. The word, though, that we're focusing on is a little bit beyond that, and it is a giving without thought of receiving. And a word that describes that pretty well, I think, is charity. So let's take a look at that, the dictionary definition of charity.
It means a benevolent goodwill toward or love of humanity.
Okay, and again, that benevolent goodwill comes out just like in one of the definitions of love earlier on, same dictionary, unselfish, loyal, and benevolent concern for the good of another. And go ahead, second definition.
Generosity and helpfulness, especially toward the needy or suffering.
Okay, that's the way we always see charity, as generosity and helpfulness, especially toward the needy or suffering. And again, when we try to expand what we're talking about, the sense of charity that we're looking at with this word for love is this benevolence, this goodwill toward others without any real thought or necessity of getting something back for it. Giving for the sake of giving.
And a third definition, a gift for public benevolent purposes.
All right, and so it gives us a sense as how charity fits into this mix. Now, read that scripture on the bottom there, John 15:12 and 13.
This is my commandment, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
And I think those are the words of Jesus shortly before he's going to his crucifixion. And when you think about the context in which he spoke those words, and we're going to come back to that context later on in the program. But, Jonathan, to me, this defines what we want to get to this morning. He is preparing himself to die at this point. And in his preparation for himself to die and bear the sin of the world, essentially, which is, some burden, he is taking this precious time to uplift and encourage those who are following him because he understands their weakness. And he's saying to them, helping them understand what he's about to embark on. He said there's no greater love that someone can have than to lay down his own life for the sake of others. And he's essentially saying that is the greatest expression of love that you can have, and I'm going to do that for you. Now he doesn't say, and I'm going to do that for you right now. But
that's what he was thinking.
But he lives it.
Absolutely.
He lives it. And that is what we want to get to. If we could have that kind of love in our lives, how would life be different? Folks, if you have a thought, give us a call at 860-442-6102. That's 442-6102. We'll come back to that frequently, that thought, because it's such a powerful, powerful thought. Let's look at how do you find love? And again, this is not a dating service. Because when you ask a question like that, isn't that what people's minds go to?
Yes,
how do you find love? Call 1-800-LOVE-NOW. I don't know. Don't do that. I don't know what that means. That could be bad. Scratch that from the record or something. But how do you find love in a larger sense? Let's take a look at some scriptural admonition along these lines.
Let's read Matthew 22, verses 37 through 39. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
So Jesus is repeating parts of two of the commandments, two of the 10 commandments given way back, in answer to a question that came to him, Master, which is the greatest of all the commandments? And Jesus doesn't give one, he gives two. And both of them have to do with love. And it's important. I think this helps to clarify one of the purposes of living. He says, first of all, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And one of the other translations, or one of the other, in either Mark, Luke, or John, it talks about with all your strength as well. It gives 4 different pieces there. And then love your neighbor the way you love yourself. Jesus is saying, if you want to live a successful life, and if I can insert the word, if you want to live an intentional life, love God with everything that's in you, and then love your neighbor, care for your neighbor as you care for yourself. And if you can do these two things, here are the ingredients for living successfully. It's an amazing encapsulation of what it takes to be successful in living, in life. Let's look at a few other scriptures.
Hebrews 1, verse 9. Thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, even thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows.
So there's another important principle. Not only do we love God with our whole being and love our neighbor as ourselves, but we're supposed to love righteousness and hate iniquity. Now, see, that's an interesting combination. We're not going to spend a lot of time this morning talking about hate or hatred or things like that. But there's an important contrast, loving righteousness and hating iniquity. Most of us in this world, again, because we are not as intentional as we ought to be, I think we do love righteousness, but we tolerate iniquity. We don't hate it. We say, well, it's okay, and, well, you know, people are people, and we will sort of blink at iniquity, at things, at wrong,